Please be seated. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a public service announcement. People seem to be very concerned about the bunnies in the window. And while we can start selling Christmas decorations in August, having bunny decorations in the window seems to be an assault on people's minds. This is my desire to educate people. Easter is not just a day, it's a season. Just like Christmas actually only runs from Christmas Day to 12 days after. We don't have a problem decorating for Christmas during the season of Advent. Easter runs for 40 days, so this is our last Sunday of Easter. And I will defiantly put bunnies in my window until Easter is done.
Amen.
With that, it's also today the end of what I'm kind of calling my So What series for those who've been here all along since Easter. We started off at Easter with You're Forgiven, So What? The Lord rose again, so what? We went through the idea that freedom is living a life of love and that what is slavery is being controlled by the world. We've gone through all of these things, and now I'm getting to the helpful advice of the So What series, which is we need to see better. There is a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's one of the cute quips that is one of my most favorite things that I've ever heard when someone told it to me once. And they said, when you get hit by a train, it wasn't the caboose that killed you. Right? The idea, by the way, for anyone who doesn't understand the reference, is that one of the things that people say when they drink a lot is, man, I shouldn't have had that last drink. The idea was the last drink isn't where the problem started. It was with the first. I would argue that in our world, we attribute much of our existence on the wrong thing. Normally, we have these great studies that come out all the time, and they tell us what we're doing that's wrong, and then after a few years, all of a sudden, we start realizing, oh, wait, the study wasn't right. Because it was looking at something that was correlating, but was not causing it. The big thing that came out recently, for anyone who pays attention to Boston psychology, is that screen time is not nearly as damaging as everyone said. It's not the screen time that was the problem. What they're saying now is it's the loss of the activity of individual play where a child is able to take risks, where a child can put themselves in danger, where a child can develop skills that they need for living and growing. It's not inherently the screen time. The screen time just makes it so rather than take risks, they just press play and they watch and they learn what others are doing, and they never develop their own sense of identity. Another good place where we love to do this all the time is no matter what political party you are with, the other political party is at fault for the economy, which I always find funny. We love to blame the president in office and say, oh, the economy is bad, it's the president's doing it. I'm going to tell you a little something about the president of the United States. They are not as important as you think they are. They really aren't. They're a symbol. The people who have the most impact on your life are your local representatives. Who can name theirs? Most can't. The people at the state level are the ones who actually give out federal funds for the most part, but yet most people are completely inactive when it comes to politics. at the local level, but man, they're willing to go to bar fights about the president. Someone who really is much more symbolic in their importance than we might realize. Sure, there are executive orders. Let's blame the president and not pay any attention to who's in Congress and sets the budgets and deals with tax laws. Let's not pay attention to the people who are responsible for spending those things. It's the figurehead, the thing that is largest, biggest, easiest to attack. That's what we look at. We often assign blame to the things that are not really responsible for the problems in our life. My favorite one, by the way, is people who like to blame God for the misfortunes of their lives that are clearly based in the choices that they make. So you go into wacky, wild... I'm not attacking us, by the way, as a bad people. We've been actually doing this for a long time. Aristotle tried to highlight these through academic terms called the efficient cause versus the final cause. Here's the funny thing. The final cause comes first. That makes sense to anyone? The final cause is actually the thing that brings things into existence. The efficient cause is the things that brings it about. It's easy to blame a hammer because the hammer did the hitting. We oftentimes don't want to blame the architect or the person wielding the hammer. We simply blame the thing that's easiest to blame. We close our eyes to larger realities. We love to simply point our fingers and say, that's at fault because I can see it. Very rarely are we willing to look at ourselves. Very rarely do we take the time to ask, how am I the problem? Our gospel reading today talks a lot about being of the world and in the world and being saved from the world. And as I said on Easter Sunday, the concept of transcending the things of this world is so revolutionary, it would transform your life in a way that you might not ever be able to imagine it. What would it mean for us to look at the actual causes? What would it mean for us to look to God and to say, God, help me see what's actually responsible for the difficulties in my life? What is actually wrong with the earth? Anybody who was at Habitat for Humanity yesterday, we had this discussion a little bit. Is really not whether or not you drive a gas car or an electric car. It's the fact that you're driving a car at all. We moved from a society where you were very close to your friends and your family and you walked everywhere, and we have made it easier to go farther and farther and farther, but we refuse to ask the question, what is the cost of our lives? It's okay, I can just pay for a carbon offset. The difficulty is, we all the time want to find the simple answer. We want to label someone as hero, someone as villain. And the reality is, life is much more difficult than that. We really always want to be right. We want to be able to blame God for the problems instead of asking ourselves, boy, did I know better when I did what I did? Okay, this is for mothers out there. How many mothers told their kids to do their homework? How many had kids that didn't do their homework and then realized that that caused them problems later in life? If we listen to the advice of our mothers, if we listen to the advice of God, our lives would be better. And yet, more often than not, we do what we want to do, and then we turn around and we blame the easiest thing to blame. It's weird. For the spiritual things, we blame the world, and for the world things, we blame the spiritual things. It's kind of funny. Swedenborg has this picture of the world where everything you see around you is spiritual. Everything has a spiritual meaning, a spiritual understanding. For Swedenborg, you walk around, and every object around you is either good or bad based on how you use it. It creates this really difficult moralistic life. Should I open the door? Yes or no? Is that a good door or a bad door? What matters is the question why. Why are you doing something? And in order to ask the question why, you have to be able to see better. My question is, what tools do you have to help you see better? What makes you not blame the caboose instead of the locomotive? So I want to give you this little piece of advice. And I don't want to send you all to too much counseling. But a little piece of advice is looking to God, asking God for guidance, of course, but then asking yourself a question. What was my role in what happened? We always want to point the fingers and blame other things. More often than not, we could have done better ourselves. More often than not, we were part of the problem. What does it mean for us to soberly acknowledge the fact and change based on that? It's easy to say God forgives us. It's easy to talk about we should live a life of love. It is very difficult for us to ask for God's vision on what our actions are, because more often than not, we have fault. And we don't like the word sin. Right? We don't like that word anymore. Some people want to translate sin to missing the mark. Oops, I made a mistake. Sometimes we don't want to be discouraging. But if we don't take the time and ask, how can we change? Then how do we change? So the end of the So What series, God has forgiven you. You don't need to worry about being damned. But if you want to be better, you must take responsibility. You must take accountability. You must begin to open your eyes to the larger question. Why did God create you? Did God create you for what it is that you are doing? Why did I do what I just did? What does that have to do with me being a more loving and better child of God? These are the big questions that we start to ask, and they start to open our eyes. They start to help us look at the things around us, maybe hopefully with more significance. Why do I wear this robe? Why does the choir wear that robe? Why do we say the things in a worship service that we say in the order that we say them? Believe it or not, there are answers to all these whys. But most people live a life where they go around not asking those questions. We fail to see the deeper realities. So this week, I encourage all of you to openly and willingly ask the whys. See better, so that you might acknowledge what you can do to live better. Amen.